Okay. Oh, you guys, I have not done a live in 1.5 million years. So I'm super excited to be on and talking about natural birth, and I think you're gonna tell really quickly how passionate I am about this topic. And so yeah, I probably am gonna jump right in just because I know most people will probably be watching this later and I don't want you to have to wait in the beginning. So I'm going to just jump in, and as people hop on, if you have questions, go ahead and just ask them in the comment box and I will try and get to them. Hi Jody. Oh hey, yay, I'm so excited for you guys that are hopping on right now. Okay, I'm gonna dive in, and if you guys have any questions as I'm going, just drop them in the comment box. I am gonna be going off the questions that I already have gotten, like in my direct messages and everything like that. Yes, I will save this if I can figure out how to save it. I think it just asks me at the end, and if that's the case, then yes, I will save it and have it, because I'm hoping this will be a really good resource for you guys. So I am going to pull up my questions that I have already gotten, and we can start with those. Also, this is how pregnant, you guys usually see this much of me, I'm getting so big. Okay, sorry, let me find my questions real fast. Okay, here they go. All right, so first I'm gonna give a small tiny intro, because these questions that you guys asked were really good and I think are gonna play into a lot of what I was already wanting to talk about. So first of all, yes, I've had all three of my other kids naturally. I'm planning on having this fourth one naturally as well, and every single one has been a completely different experience, which I feel actually is going to be very beneficial for you guys if you have any questions of how it went during my actual labor, because all three of my labors were very different. My first one, he was actually posterior, so he was in a not good position, and so I dealt with that. And my second one was very, very quick labor. It was only a 4-hour labor from start to finish. And my last labor was 22 and a half hours. So I also know what it's like to labor for a really, really long time doing this. So, and again, ask your questions now if you have them, so that after I answer the ones that I have, that I can just scroll back and answer them. I think that will be the fastest and probably most effective way to do it. But okay, let's just dive in. So the first question was, what pain management, and I am out of breath, so I apologize if I have to stop and breathe every second, because me talking a lot, I get out of breath really quick. Okay, so what pain management techniques did I use, if any, and did I take any classes to prepare? So I think this is going to be by far my biggest advice or technique, or what I want to spend the most time talking about and probably answering questions, is the class that I took is called Hypnobabies. There's a lot of different ones that I feel sound similar, especially there's another popular one called Hypnobirthing. And Hypnobirthing and Hypnobabies are different, so don't get those mixed up and think that they're the same thing. So again, the one that I did is called Hypnobabies. It's just spelled Hypno babies. You can Google it. There is classes available online. There's also classes that you can take depending on where you live. Obviously, they might not offer them super close to you, but they do offer them online. I have had friends take them online before and have had great experience that way. So don't feel like you have to take it in person to have it be beneficial. So I actually took the class with my first one, and then I took it again the second time, paid the second time to go to the class. And then the third time I just already had all the material. They give you a great big huge booklet that it has so much goodness in it, you guys. Like, I thought I knew like things about having a baby, and you read this manual and you're just like, it's mind-blowing of all the information that talks about what your body is actually doing, why it's responding to certain things. I don't know, it's super informative. So you get that manual. You also get this is called, I think they just call it like a quick reference guide. So it's super thin, and this is like a very condensed version of the big pamphlet. So when you go to the hospital, this is what you take. You don't have to take like this big huge book or anything like that. And this has just like quick notes and references to things that you've kind of studied if you want it while you're there at the hospital. Honestly, I've brought this every single time and I've never used it. So yeah, but you do get this. And then the other thing that they give you is a thing full of tracks, like audio tracks. So the audio tracks are what is like the gold of the Hypnobabies course. So in general, what the Hypnobabies course is it's teaching your body how to completely relax. So the reason why labor is painful is because there's so much tension in our muscles. I mean, like, our muscles, every single time we contract, they're squeezing and there's so much tension. Tension is what creates pain. So if you can tell your muscles to relax, there's no pain. Like, legitimately, there's no pain. So this whole Hypnobabies thing is teaching you how to be able to release all of the tension in your muscles so that the pain goes away during your contractions. So the better you get at it, the more pain-free your labor is. So my first and third labor were definitely not pain-free because I would go in and out of this like state of hypnosis. My second labor was legit completely pain-free, you guys. Like, I don't say that lightly. It was completely pain-free, my second one. It was like I was in a yoga class and I was just breathing. Like, it was incredible and insane. Also, I want to remind you that was also my 4-hour labor, so I didn't have to do it for as long. But it is possible to get rid of the pain of contractions by using this technique. So also, I know that hypnosis like kind of sounds like hippie and crazy and weird, but honestly, all of us are in a state of hypnosis like several times a day. It's very natural for us to be in this state of hypnosis that we're using. Like when you watch TV, you're in a state of hypnosis. It's the same kind of state as when you watch TV. Like when you're driving and all of a sudden you like realize you're like, oh, I'm home, and you like realize you hadn't even like really followed all of your turns and you're like, oh, that was weird. That's a state of hypnosis. So that is the state that we're getting in. It's not a state where you can't talk to people or you don't know what's going on. Like, you're still very aware of your situation, but you're in a very controlled mind state. I think someone... Yes, okay, even pain-free during the pushing, yes. In fact, for me, and this might be different for everybody, but during my 3 labors, the pushing, well, I take that back. My second and third labor, my pushing was actually definitely pain-free. I enjoyed the pushing way more than I enjoyed the contractions. My first labor, because he was posterior, meaning he was flipped, and was not in a good position, I actually pushed for 4 hours, and that was not fun. And I actually went in and out of my hypnosis. It was very hard for me to like stay in my hypnosis state. So whenever I would get out of it, then yes, there was pain during pushing with my first one. But I would pull myself back into it. And I also hired a doula who helped me be able to do that. And every time I pulled myself back into hypnosis and started using my techniques again and being able to calm down, then the pain would go away. So hopefully that answers your question. So did I answer that question good enough? I don't know. So that's the technique. It's called Hypnobabies. You're in a state of hypnosis. It's a very controlled mind state, and basically you're teaching your body how to completely relax and release any tension that you have so that you don't have any pain. Yeah? Okay, if that was good, then do like hearts or thumbs up or something, and then I will move on. Any other questions, maybe specific to that one and why you do that? I'm going to look at what my next question is really quick. Oh, there's so many fun people coming on. Okay. If you're just jumping on, if you have any questions, then okay, awesome. I'm seeing the hearts and thumbs up. Okay, cool. If you're just jumping on, go ahead and drop your questions below now, and after I do the questions that I have, I will jump back to the ones in the comments. Okay, so the next question you know what? Before I move on, I am going to say, as far as preparation for doing the Hypnobabies, I can hear my kids screaming downstairs. I'm upstairs in my mom's extra bedroom. I think they're okay though. Okay, so what was I talking about? Preparation. Okay, so if you're taking the class, it's a 6 weeks class, and at least the class that I went to, it was 1 day a week, but it was for 3 hours. So you're getting 18 hours worth of like education taking the class. Obviously, if you're doing it online, that could be slightly different. So then other than that, you have all those audio tracks that they sent you, and you listen to the audio tracks every single day. So there's different tracks for different things. Like they have a fear clearing session. If there's certain things that you're worried about happening in your labor, it helps you to like get through that mental block. It has positive affirmations, which the positive affirmations is a CD you should listen to every single day. Just feeding your mind good thoughts. It's amazing how powerful our minds are. And by surrounding and telling yourself these good, powerful thoughts about your body and what your body is capable of doing, it really helps. It's like the same thing as if you don't want the negative stuff. So if this is your first time having a baby and you're gonna have a baby shower or something like that, I would recommend like saying on your invite, even though you may feel silly, to put on there like, let's not share labor stories at my baby shower. Because for some reason, I don't get this, I really don't, but women, when they tell their labor stories, it's like they always have to say the hardest, scariest, most difficult part, the most painful part or whatever. It's like, I had to push for this long and it was terrible. Or anyways, you don't want any of that stuff going into your head, because you want it to be positive and know that your body was physically made to have children and you are able to do this. You're strong enough to do this. I honestly believe that anybody, no matter what your pain tolerance is, I believe anybody can go natural if they prepare to do so. I don't believe I could have ever gone natural if I didn't prepare. But because I prepare and my mind is prepared, I believe I can do it, and I can do it, and I think anybody else can too. So my preparation starts usually like 6 weeks before I'm gonna have the baby, and I spend about a half hour, maybe 45 minutes every single night working on these audio tracks and like literally going through the motions of relaxing my body completely, having positive thoughts, and it's a practice. It's just like anything else. Like the more you practice, your body becomes used to doing what you're doing and it becomes second nature. So I could go way more into depth with that, but the only last thing I'll say with that is that they teach you like certain keywords and things like that and phrases in these audio tracks that every single time you hear that word, your body will immediately relax. And so then in labor, your doula or your nurse or your spouse or whoever's there can use those words and cues they'll say them and your body will immediately relax because you've been training your body and your mind that every single time you hear that word, you're going to fully relax and fully release all your tension. And because you've been practicing it every day for like 6 weeks, it becomes way easier. So that was a lot for that first question, but hopefully that helps. Okay, so the second question. Okay. Would you let your kids attend, and have they attended? She's considering having her daughter watch. Okay, so I have never had my kids attend my labor. I think that's a very personal thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with having your daughter or your kids there. Obviously right now with COVID, they would not allow that. So it depends on when you're going to have your baby. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Personally, for me, I don't allow anybody in my labor except for my husband, which has been really hard. I've had my mom ask several times to be there, and other people have wanted to be there, and I've had to tell them no, which has been really difficult. But for me, in this situation, when you are in this state of hypnosis, you don't want any type of distraction. And every single person, in my opinion, that is in the room should be there with a role. There is no one that should be in the room, in my opinion, that is there watching. If they are there watching, then they can be a distraction because they don't have anything to do. They're just watching. So everyone that was in the room with me always had a role. I had my husband, and then obviously the nurses, and then I also hired a doula, which a doula is your saving grace. I feel like I have loved having a doula. It's made it so that Eric enjoys the labor a little bit more, I think, because unlike, I can't speak too much for like having a medicated birth because I have never done that before, but from what I understand, the partner is not doing a whole lot during labor, which is very different in this case. With this case, like, Eric is very involved. He is very exhausted, just as exhausted as I am at the end of labor, because he is helping me in different positions. And this is a whole other topic we could talk about. So if you want me to dive in what the partner does, I can talk about that as well. But just in brief, like, there's a lot of pressure points and stuff on your side, like your hips and your back and things like that, that they can, like, press into. I mean, like, giving as much force into your back and sides as they can, which releases so much tension and makes your contractions feel 1,000,000 times better. Like, I can't believe how much tension and pain it takes away by using these pressure points. So, yeah, I'm definitely using Eric and my doula to be pressing on pressure points almost every single contraction I have. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. The next day, like, Eric has always been really sore, and my doula will message me and be like, I can't feel my arm and stuff like that, just because they're very involved in the whole labor. But they have a part, they know what they're doing. Everyone that's there has a role. So as far as having kids attend, I personally would never have my kids attend, just because I wouldn't want to lose my concentration and what I was doing, not anything because of what they would see, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of comes down to a personal thing. Okay. The next question is, how would you deal with a non-supportive spouse? My hubby thinks that no pain meds is a dumb idea. Okay, so this would be extremely difficult. Oh man, this would be really hard because, like I just said, like, Eric is a very big role in my labor. As far as preparation goes, if it's your first time using Hypnobabies, I would suggest your partner doing the course with you. In fact, I think they require it if you are doing it in person class, that they require your partner or spouse or whoever's going to help you be at the class, because they need to be just as informed of what you are doing as you are. So I feel like if your husband isn't on board, you either need to find somebody else that is on board that will help you during your labor, or you just need to talk him into it by showing him all the pros about it. Maybe that's something, is asking him what his concerns are. If his concerns are that you're going to be in too much pain, then I don't feel like that's a good reason, because this technique literally takes away pain. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. I feel like that would be a really, really, really hard situation to be in. But that's kind of my answer. So I don't know if that helped or not. But okay, did I take any classes? I talked about that. Do you think you could do it without paying for a doula? What does it actually feel like? Okay, so those are two different questions. So doing it without a doula, yes, I do think you can do it without a doula. I think that having a doula made me feel more secure in doing it, just because my doula was also certified in Hypnobabies, which I think if you're going to have a doula and you're going to use the Hypnobabies technique, they should go hand in hand. They should know what you're doing inside your mind, and so that they can help you. If they're not going to be using Hypnobabies or be familiar with it, then I would say that doula would, I'm sure, be still helpful, but maybe not as helpful as if you were using this technique and having a doula that understood it, if that makes sense. If you want to not use a doula at all, I think you totally can. I think it really comes down to the preparation. If you are putting in the time and like the effort into doing all of your audio courses and like the study and everything like that, I totally think you can. For me, it's mostly a safety blanket. And now that I've had a doula, like I had a doula with my first one, which my first labor was my hardest one. I think that I realized how much I used her during my labor, that she became a safety, and I wanted her for my second. And then I didn't use her as much at my second one, but again, it was just like a security. So then I was like, okay, I want her for my third one. And now I'm so bummed because I don't think I'm going to actually have her for this one. Just because of COVID, for one. You still can have a doula right now. They just have to be contracted. You have to just bring your contract, which she always has been contracted, so that's not the issue. But she just has some family stuff going on. So I may not have one this time, which is a little bit scary to me, if I'm being completely honest. But I don't know. I may hire somebody else, and I haven't decided on that. But I think you can do it without a doula. I just think you have to have more preparation to be able to do so, if that makes sense. Also, if it's a money thing, a doula is way cheaper than an epidural. So I look at it that way, that you could pay for an epidural or you could pay for a doula. And in my opinion, I'd rather pay for a doula. So that's that. Okay. Then what does it actually feel like? So, the word that we like to use in Hypnobabies instead of pain, is pressure, which is because that's really what it feels like. It's very, 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 very intense pressure. And if you're doing your techniques correctly, where you're releasing the tension in your muscles, then it really isn't pain. It really is a lot of pressure. It's not like if you're doing your techniques, you feel like you're just laying there. Like, obviously, you're still going to feel something, which what you're feeling is a ton of pressure. And pressure is not painful. It can be uncomfortable, but it's just pressure. As far as pushing goes, there's what's called the ring of fire. If you are familiar with that, that is when your baby is starting to be able to crown, and that's when your cervix is basically, is it your cervix? Now I'm going to say the wrong thing. Anyways, it's when your baby's crowning, the head is starting to come out. That is called the ring of fire. And that is kind of what it feels like. I feel like that's the only point in where you're feeling something other than pressure, is at that, only that split second that happens when the head is starting to come out. And honestly, this probably sounds weird, but I look forward to the Ring of Fire because before then, your body feels the same. You're just feeling pressure and feeling pressure. And it's like you feel the Ring of Fire, and it's like you get this huge adrenaline rush of like, oh, hey, my baby is right here. I'm pushing this baby out. And for me, I always look forward to it because it's an exciting thing that like the baby's there. And it's not very long. Like the Ring of Fire is probably like 30 seconds. I don't know, honestly, because in Hypnobabies, when you're doing all these techniques, that's the other thing, is that everything goes by very quickly, because you're just in this state of hypnosis. So like a lot of times I'll be like, holy cow, that was like an hour, like, and they'll be like, oh no, it's been like 5 hours. I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't really know how long the Ring of Fire is, but it does not feel long at all. And actually having your baby come out is like the most amazing, coolest, weirdest feeling. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, you feel your whole baby just slide out. So it's pretty amazing. And honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I love doing this is because it's by far the most empowering experience I have ever experienced. It's really powerful. So hopefully that answers what it feels like. Okay. Okay, I love this question. This one's actually really good. So it says, any tips on breathing techniques during labor and pushing? So during labor, all of your breathing is going to be just think of like a yoga class. It's like you're breathing in through your nose, you're breathing out through your mouth. That's like the goal. And it literally is like, if you can get yourself in that state of hypnosis, it legitimately is like you're in a yoga class. That's what you should picture. That's what the type of breathing is like during your labor. And that's what it looks like. Women that do Hypnobabies that are in labor, a lot of times the nurse doesn't believe that you're as far along as you are, because you're so relaxed that they're not used to seeing that with women that go natural. So anyways, the breathing during labor is very much just like yoga, but during pushing it's different. So it's the same as far as like you're trying to have a calm breathing of in through your nose and out through your mouth. The difference is obviously you're pushing, right? So there may be some like grunting involved or things like that, but you want to think of, most women, if you're not thinking about it, will go ah, like they'll use the ah, right? Instead of using ah, you want to use oh. And why you want to use O is because O is a lot lower, and it helps your, how do I explain this? Because it's lower in your tone, it uses lower muscles, and it actually helps you push your baby out. Where if you're using ah usually leads into like screaming. And so you don't want to do that because you want to be in control of your body. So instead of using ah, using O. And I felt really weird doing this. It felt like kind of uncomfortable at first, but it helps immensely. And Eric always does it with me, and my doula will do it with me. And it's kind of probably really comical to look at and to be a nurse and watch, because I'm sure it's kind of, yeah, you're just saying oh basically over and over again. But it's super helpful. So okay, I think there was one more question on this. Okay, what has helped the most? I'm 28 weeks with my first and getting nervous. Okay, so what has helped the most, honestly, is preparation. Just setting your mind to doing it and committing to practicing every single day. I hate practicing every single day. It is not something that I like necessarily look forward to doing, but it's like a workout. It's like you don't want to do it, but then you do it and you're so glad you did it. It's like that. If you've ever experienced or participated in doing meditation, that's really all it is it's meditation. It's just specific around your labor and like being pregnant. So is what I would say has helped the most. Okay, I know I had one or two questions. Sorry, I don't want to knock this over. If you have any other questions right now, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Sorry, I'm sliding back. I know I saw a couple. Okay. Do you deliver at a hospital, and how do you discuss with the nurses your expectations? Okay, this is good. Yes, I deliver at a hospital. And one thing you can do is when you're driving to the hospital, have your husband, have him call your hospital. You can request nurses that are pro natural birth. And I can tell you right now, your nurses will make a huge difference. I hated my nurses with my first, mostly because they did not, it was like they didn't care that I was going natural, and like was not even like registering that I was going natural. They were like waving my leg all over the place and like all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, stop touching me, like let me do my thing. So having good nurses is key. So call and have your husband call and say, hey, we're on our way there. I'm wondering if you have any nurses on staff right now that are pro natural birth that I could have for my wife. And so we've done that, and it's been very helpful. My last two, like my nurses were amazing, and they were way helpful because they were excited that I was going natural. And yeah, so I think nurses are a big deal. So the other thing, I'm glad you actually brought this up because I wanted to talk about this and I already forgot. So I print off a thing that says Malay birth preferences, and I tape this, or I don't personally do this, my husband does. He tapes this on the outside of our door so that anybody that is coming through our door will be like, oh, there's a paper on there, and they look at it or whatever and they read it, and it says like what my expectations are for my birth. So it tells them that I'm using Hypnobabies, that I'm going to be in a state of hypnosis, so that if they have any questions, to not ask me, but to ask my husband. And if it's a question that they have to ask me for, that they have to wait for me to be at a point where I will get out of my hypnosis to talk to them, which they've never done that before. They've always been able to talk to Eric so that I can keep my concentration. Another thing that I have on here is, okay, first of all, you have a ton of options, by the way, when you give birth, and majority of us don't even know that we have the options because we just go in and have a baby and the nurses and doctors take care of everything. And the Hypnobabies like manual, that big, huge, thick one, it goes through all of the things that you actually have options about. And if you don't say anything about it, then they're just going to do what they always do because it's just what they always do. So I'm not saying any of these things are necessarily bad. So I don't want you, like, as I'm saying them, I don't want you to be like, oh, I didn't know that was bad. I'm not saying any of these things are bad. It's just for me, this made it so that it was easier for me to give naturally. So one was, I don't want to have an IV saline lock. I don't want to have an IV, basically. So I have actually been tested Strep B positive with all three of my last children, which means that I had to have an IV because they have to give me the antibiotic. So I had to have an IV, but they allowed me to not be hooked up if I didn't want to be hooked up. I only had to be hooked up during the time that I had to get my antibiotic. So I was freely able to move around the room. I wasn't attached to anything. Which brings me to the other thing is that they like to monitor you like consistently through your entire labor. And I say that I only want intermittent monitoring, which means that there's a certain allotted amount of time depending on where you're at in your labor, of how much they have to monitor you. So like every hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that, they'll have to come and monitor you and the baby. And at that point, like, you'll have to be hooked up to something. But otherwise, I don't want to be hooked up to anything. And so that's what that is. Cool, bud.
Yeah, but Mom.
Hold on.
I don't know where my iPad is.
It's lost right now. I'll help you in a minute. We don't have it.
We don't have it.
I'll find it in a minute. Grayson, you're going to lose your token.
I don't want to lose it.
Okay.
I see it.
Okay. Will you shut the door? Hurry. Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is another one that I really like. Is I have on there, please do not offer me any pain medications or ask what my pain level is. I have studied out my options and I will let you know if I need anything. Which I feel like this is a big one. And this is another reason why I don't let anyone in besides Eric in my labor, because I feel like some people don't really know what you're going through, and they may look at you and be like, oh, you might need an epidural now. And then you'd be like, oh, wait, and you start getting in your head and you're like, do I need an epidural? Maybe I need an epidural now. Can I not handle this pain? Can I not handle this pressure? Like, you know, and you don't want that. So I don't want them to ask me what my pain level is. That's the biggest thing, because that's very common for nurses to do, is to come in, what's your pain level? Okay, how are we doing? You know, and I just don't want them to even talk to me about that at all. And if it's necessary, that's something that they can talk to Eric about, and then Eric can talk to me about if needs be. So that's that one. What else do I have on here? Okay, I have on here also, I do not want to deliver on my back or on my side. So delivering on your back is actually the worst position you could be in to deliver a baby. The reason why you are on your back is, if you have an epidural, is because you can't feel it. Well, mostly you can't feel it. And 2, it's the best position for a doctor to be able to see everything that's happening. That's the biggest reason why you're on your back. As far as allowing your body to have the baby in a natural way, on your back is the worst possible position. And why is because, so your tailbone goes like this, and the very end of your tailbone will slightly move. If you are on your back, it's a lot harder for this part to move. If you are upright, it like freely gives because of gravity. So, I have delivered on all 4s with all 3 of my babies, and I was planning on, the best positions are either on all 4s or to squat. And I thought I was gonna squat with my last one, and I didn't. I just ended up on all 4s. You just don't know what position you're gonna be in, honestly, until you're in the moment, and your body will tell you how you're gonna be most comfortable. So if you cannot be on your back, I had to be on my back for my first labor, which I think is part of why it was so hard and so terrible, because I laid on my back, and after I laid on my back, I couldn't move to a different position. It was too hard, and so I got stuck on my back. So after that, and it was because they were giving me, they were checking to see how far dilated I was, and they wanted me to lay down. And so I did, and I never was able to get off my back after that. And so with my other 2, lesson learned, I never got on my back again. And when they were like, hey, we need to check how far you are, I said, great, I'm going to stand right here. And my nurses were awesome, because they were pro natural birth, and they literally would like lay down on the ground and check me. So do not think you have to do anything that they say. They can figure out ways that they can get around it, and they can do what they need to do on their end. I'm not trying to make it so that they can't do their job. Of course, their job is important, and there's a reason that they're there. There's a reason why I still deliver in a hospital. I do like that security if anything went wrong, that I was already right there. But don't feel like you have to abide by everything they say. If they want you to do something and it's not going to be comfortable, then just tell them, I'm not going to do that. Is there a different way we can do it? Okay, Is there anything else in here that I did? After baby is born, I want him immediately placed on for skin to skin, which I feel like is pretty common, but I have that on here anyways. And then I also have that I do not want the cord clamped until after it's done pulsing, which that you definitely have to ask for, because otherwise they just clamp it and cut it. And I just like to wait until all of the blood has done what it needs to do and it's done pulsing, and then clamp it. I also bring all of my own blankets. I don't use any of the hospital's blankets, mostly just because they're like scratchy and not soft, and yeah, so I do that. And then I also don't give baby a bath until we get home, which is just personal preference, but that's the other thing that I have on here. So if you'd like some visuals, I thought this actually was really good. So I will hold it up. If you want a screenshot, you can. These are different positions for laboring out of bed. Because obviously, like, if you're never experienced giving natural birth and you're just like, well, I've always just laid on my back, like, what else do you do? These are all positions that you can do during labor, that is a comfortable position for you to be in, and it's safe for the baby, and it may not be a position you thought about. So I'm going to hold this up. Okay. Were you able to see that? I can't see myself. So will you like do hearts or something? Was that a good position for me to hold that? Okay, there's one other thing I wanted to go over super fast, and that is that if your baby is not in a good position, there are things that you can do during your labor. Like, if your baby, like, I wish I would have done this with my first one and I didn't. It's honestly because I laid on my back and I could not get up. But there are different positions. There's one that's called the abdominal lift and tuck. You can Google it, and it helps your baby to switch positions. And that position is not from breech to like a regular position, but it would be if your baby's posterior, which is what my first one was, which means that their head was up instead of down. So it just know, like, if your baby is in a bad position, don't be like, okay, I can't go natural if my baby's in a bad position. Like, no, you can still go natural. Yes, it is going to be harder, but it is still possible. You still can do it. And yeah, there's like, this whole thing is about that, but just Google abdominal lift and tuck. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Okay, is there anything else? If you have any other questions, let me slide. Oh, sorry. I about blocked somebody. Okay, let me slide down and see if there's any other questions. Okay, spinning babies. Yes. Yes. Okay, I used spinning babies actually with my first one. So I never got him to spin. Honestly, all my babies have been in bad positions except for this one. So I'm like crossing my fingers. He's already flipped. He's in a great position. I'm 34 weeks now. He flipped when I was 31 weeks. All my other babies didn't turn till they were like 36, 37 weeks. So it's kind of crazy to me that he's already flipped, but I'm like, praise the heavens. I've never had a baby in a good position. So I have used spinning babies. I definitely like their techniques, and they go right along with hypno babies. So yeah. Let's see, anything else? Okay, so, the top half. Does that mean that I only showed the top half on that one? Is that what you're talking about? Let's try this again. Is that good? Hopefully that helps. Okay. Okay. It's my first pregnancy. how do you know your labor options? Should I discuss with my doctor? Definitely discuss with your doctor. That is actually a huge other topic I didn't even touch on. Is please make sure your doctor is like pro natural birth, because if you have a doctor that's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you can go natural, I guess, like, don't, like, get out. Like, you want a different doctor that is like, yes, of course, like, let's do this. Like, how do you know, like, are you excited about this? Are you nervous? Like, you want your doctor to be like 150% on board, because otherwise you're going to get to the end of your pregnancy and they're going to be like, so do you want to be induced? Like, you're 40 weeks, like, are you sure you don't want to be induced? And then they're going to get inside your head, or they might sorry, let me move this, or other things would be that I feel like doctors have done before is they'll be more inclined to give you an epidural. Like, they'll be like, okay, like, seems like you're struggling, like, do you need an epidural? Or let's give you Pitocin, or, which, by the way, I don't think Pitocin is the worst thing. In fact, if you are feeling like your labor is not progressing, excuse me, you can always do Pitocin without an epidural. You do not have to have an epidural to have Pitocin. You can have Pitocin by itself, which Pitocin is what helps speed up your contractions and has your body start contracting more frequently. The pressure you're going to feel is going to be more intense than if you don't have Pitocin, because it's your body not doing things by itself. It's having something change what it naturally wants to do. But yeah, I would definitely discuss with your doctor. I don't think you have to have a midwife to go natural, although I do feel like I have loved my midwives. I had an OBGYN with my first, and then my midwife, I had the same midwife for my second and third, and he retired, and I'm so sad because I loved him so much. So I have a new midwife for this little baby, but I love her, and I think that she is going to be amazing. Okay. Is being on your back while delivering the main cause of tearing? I am terrified of tearing. Okay, this is why I went natural, is because everything you would Google and read and everyone I talked to, sorry guys, I am like sweating. Okay, the main reason I went natural in the first place was because it's supposed to help you not be able to tear as much. I have torn with every child. So I can't be like, oh, go natural and you won't tear, because I have. But I do not think that it has to do with being on your back specifically. I do think that might play a part in it. Honestly, there's a lot of factors that go into tearing. So I'll tell you really briefly my tearing, what happened and everything, so that you don't have to be scared of it. Cause don't be scared of it. I mean, obviously it's not the funnest thing in the world, but tearing, I tore completely front to back with my first, and that was mainly because he was in a terrible position. He was posterior, so he was not in the right position. So obviously he went out a way that was not made for a baby to go out that way. So yes, I did tear with him, and my recovery was pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie, because of how bad that was. But again, he was in a really bad position. That's not normal. Normal is not to tear that much. And you can also have, let me see, I forgot what it's called, so I don't want to say it wrong. Perineal massage. There you go. Okay, look that up. Google perineal massage. That is something you can talk to your doctor about if you are comfortable having your doctor do that. You could also Google it and have your spouse learn how to do that. Basically, that is someone getting up in there during the time right before you're going to be pushing, or during pushing, and they are going to be massaging down there and stretching to help you to not tear. I have not done this, not because I did not want to. It just, in my labors, it just didn't happen. But that is also an option to help from tearing. Also, like being in water, if you're interested in a water birth. I have never done a water birth, although I'm very intrigued by them. Water births help to not tear. And my second two, I only tore, they said that I only tore because I had such bad scar tissue from my first. That scar tissue does not stretch. So the baby got to a certain point and then it hit scar tissue and it just would open. So both my second and third recoveries were not bad at all, even though I tore. So don't be afraid of tearing is what I'm trying to say. Like, yes, it could happen. There are things that you can do to prevent it. But if you do end up tearing, it's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. Okay. Let's see other questions. Okay, do you have them break your water or do you just let your water break naturally? Okay, so my water has broken naturally every time. But it's been different for all three of my babies too. So my first baby, my water did not break until I was ready to push, like right before I started pushing. So I was fully dilated to a 10 is when my water broke. And then with both my second and third, my water actually broke, and that's why I went into labor. So it's different, but I have learned with my third one, my water sac broke, but apparently Jack came down so fast that he like pinched off part of my water sac. So majority of my water sac broke, but not the whole thing. And so I got to the hospital. We were all kind of like, we had to rush there because Eden's labor was only 4 hours from when my water broke. I held her 4 hours later. So it went really fast. So we were expecting Jack to be about the same. And we got to the hospital and they were like, okay, he's fully engaged. He's down there. He's in a great position. They called my midwife immediately when I got there. And okay, this is another whole topic. Guys, I could talk about this forever, but I do not dilate until I am in labor. Everybody is very, 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 very different. So we'll talk about dilating in a second because I do feel like that is important to talk about, especially if you're going to be a first-time mom. But anyways, I got to the hospital. I was only dilated to a 3, but they let me stay because my water had broke and he was completely engaged and in position. And so I didn't have him for 22 and a half hours and everyone was like mind boggled. And we ended up realizing that it was because when I was having contractions, his head was not pushing against my cervix. It was pushing against the rest of that water sac. So if we would have just checked my water sac, and they would have been like, oh, it's not completely broke. And they would have broke the rest of it. And my labor probably would have been dramatically less time. And so, anyways, so what I'm trying to say is as soon as the rest of that water sac broke with him, he was born 40 minutes later. With Eden, it was like a few hours later. With Grayson, it was as soon as my water broke, like I was ready to push. So we pretty much have learned about my body that as soon as my water breaks, like it's kind of go time. So this time when my water breaks, I definitely will be making sure that my complete water sac is broke. Just because I don't want to go through that again of where it was way too long where I was contracting against my water sac and not my cervix. Okay. Can you save this slide? Yes, I will save this as long as I can figure out how to. Then yes, I will. Okay, so let's talk about dilating and just like how everybody's bodies are different just really quickly because everyone's body is so different, you guys. I have a friend that she dilates very quickly and it was actually really funny. This was before I even had kids and I remember she was like, I'm dilated to a 5 and she was dilated to a 5 for weeks. For weeks, she was walking around dilated at a 5. Like it blows my mind. And then, but her body still wasn't ready to have the baby. Like she was just dilated to a 5. She wasn't effaced or anything like that. Like, it just, your body is going to do different things. And that's one thing to know, is that there's several different things. I can't name all of them right now, but they are listed in the Hypnobabies manual and like goes into depth. But there's all these different things that your body has to do before it's ready to go into labor. Your dilation and how effaced your cervix is just a couple of ways that you can quickly see if you are progressing. It is not the only way, and it does not tell all. With all 3 of my babies, which I feel like this is hilarious and like so coincidental, but I had doctor's appointments with all 3 of my babies the day before I gave birth to all of them, and I was at a 0 dilation with one of them the day before I had birth. The other 2, I was dilated to a 1. So dilation doesn't mean anything. And my body just doesn't dilate until I am in labor. So I think that's another thing, that if you're going to get checked, like with your midwife or your OBGYN, and you don't want to get like numbers in your head or something like that, you don't have to be checked. Like, if they're like, all right, today is the cervical check, let's see where you're at or whatever, you can decide not to. Also in labor, you can also decline that, just so you know, or I don't think you can decline it, but if they do it, then tell them you don't want to know where you're at. So when I was in labor, I never knew how far dilated I was. Unless my doula thought it would be like super encouraging. She'd be like, you're at a 9 or whatever. But if I would, like, because I dilate so slow, it's like literally the last thing that happens. So if I would have been there for 4 hours and I was still only like dilated to a 3 or something, like, she wasn't going to say anything. But they will just tell Eric what I was dilated to. So that it doesn't get in your head. It doesn't play that whole game. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else with dilating. I think that's it. Yes, you can tell them to check the least amount of possible, for sure. Like, you have so much more like rights and control than like you really think that you do, just because we always hear what everybody does and you don't know, and so you just go with the flow. But if there's certain things that you don't want, you definitely can tell them that you don't want it. Okay, would you recommend laboring at home as long as you can? I've heard this is a good idea if you're scared of intervention because it's taking too long. Okay, this is such a good question. Okay, how do I want to answer this? So I think there's pros and cons to going both ways. One, I'm going to start out with saying, if you have the right doctor and you have the right nurses, they will not care how long you are in labor, as long as you are healthy and oh guys, I only have 2 minutes. Okay, I have to go fast and then it's going to kick me off. So if you have a good nurse and a good doctor, they're not going, as long as you and the baby are still healthy and your guys' heart rates are healthy and everything is still looking good, then they're not going to stop you. If you have a good doctor that's like on board for you going natural. Recommending laboring at home, yes and no. I labored at home with my first one, and I labored at home too long. So when I was driving in the car, I lost all my hypnosis and all my concentration and everything, because I was in a harder part of labor because I was further along when I decided to get to the hospital. So my last two, my water also broke, but as soon as I could, I went to the hospital so that I could get there, I could get adjusted, get calm and everything like that before I was in a more intense part of labor. So for me, that's what worked better, was actually getting to the hospital sooner to like get adjusted and comfortable and kind of get in my groove of hypnosis before it got to an intense part. So, okay, I only have like 40 seconds. I don't know if there's like any other questions. This has been so fun. I can't believe I've literally just sat and talked for an hour about this, because I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Is it harder being pregnant during this pandemic? Honestly, it's been okay. I have been more cautious about things, I feel like, but I already am kind of like a germaphobe. So I'm already like been wiping out things. I'm always like an extra hand sanitizer person. So honestly, it hasn't been too big of a difference. I think it'd be really hard if my husband couldn't be in the labor with me, but I can have him there. So as long as he's there, we'll be good. But okay, love you guys.